My husband told a room full of people, on the night of our anniversary, that I was a glorified accountant. What I actually am is the managing partner of a firm that controls $940 million in client assets. I have signed off on transactions larger than his entire family fortune before my second coffee. In 8 years of marriage, my husband never once asked me what I actually did for a living. That was the mistake that cost him everything. Because 3 weeks before that anniversary party, I walked into my own kitchen and found my husband's stepsister wearing his grandmother's pearls, the hand-strung ones, 87 years old, the ones with the little hummingbird clasp. And she looked at me, and she did not take them off. She said,
"Oh, you're home. I didn't realize you'd be back so early."
Like she was surprised I still had a key to my own house. I set my keys on the counter. My husband, Connor, 42, handsome in the easy way of men who have never had to work for anything, had the decency to look uncomfortable for about 1 second before he said,
She wanted to try them on for the party. I told you that.
He had not told me that. I looked at the pearls sitting on her collarbone. I said, They look beautiful on you. Then I went upstairs and opened my laptop. I did not cry, because the man who underestimates you is handing you a weapon, every single day, and I had been collecting mine for 8 years. By the time that party ended, my husband would lose $31 million in front of everyone he had ever wanted to impress. His stepmother would stop taking his calls, and the woman in my pearls would make a choice in front of 86 people that ended her too. I planned all of it at that kitchen table on a Tuesday, while they thought I was checking my email. But to understand how a glorified accountant took an entire family apart with a single sheet of paper, you need to understand who these people actually were, and what every one of them got wrong about me. Start with Audrey. Audrey is not my sister. She has never been my sister. She is the biological daughter of Margaret, who is Connor's stepmother, which makes Audrey, technically, my husband's stepsister, by a marriage that happened when he was 17. She started calling herself my sister at parties 6 months after our wedding. She said it the way she said everything, with the confidence of someone who has never been told no loudly enough to hear it. Nobody corrected her. I didn't either. That was a habit of mine. Letting people take what they hadn't earned, because the correction felt like more effort than the theft was worth. I have since broken that habit. It broke expensively, for other people. Connor's real mother died when he was 12. His father remarried 5 years later, a polished, expensive woman named Margaret, who arrived with good jewelry, and a daughter named Audrey. Connor's father died 3 years into that marriage and left everything to Connor. The Voss family trust, the house, the name. He left Margaret far less than she had expected. Margaret had been quietly keeping score ever since. Her voice warmed 3 degrees when Audrey entered a room and cooled the same when I did. At our 5th anniversary dinner, she told Connor he had married ambition, like it was a medical condition. She told me, once, that I might consider a less demanding career if I wanted the marriage to last. I thanked her warmly. I made a note. Here is the thing none of them understood, because none of them ever bothered to look. I notice everything. It's my actual job. I read the documents other people find boring. I see the clause on page 40 that everyone else skips. The skill that made me a managing partner is the same skill that made me, without any of them realizing it, the most dangerous person at that anniversary party. They just couldn't see it, because they had already decided what I was. Let me show you exactly how blind they were. 6 months before the party, Audrey moved back to Boston after a decade of failing to launch in 3 different cities. I was generous. I introduced her to people, let her stay in the guest room, lent her my car. I lent her $11,000 in 2019 that she has never mentioned since. I let her become a fixture in my home because she called herself family, and I was tired. Connor found her interesting, more interesting than he found me, which, by year 3 of our marriage, was not a high bar to clear. And I knew. I knew about the affair 4 full months before that kitchen. I said nothing, because the moment you say something is the moment they start covering their tracks, and I did not want covered tracks. I wanted them confident. I wanted them comfortable. I wanted them walking in a straight line toward the exact spot where I was standing, holding the one document that would end all 3 of them. Because here is what I had that they didn't. I had actually read the trust. Let me tell you what I found in it. This is the part they should have been afraid of. The Voss family trust was written in 1962, amended twice, The last time in 2014 by a junior associate at a firm that mostly handled real estate. In my professional opinion, that 2014 amendment should never have left anyone's desk, because buried in it was a clause, a single clause, written by Connor's grandfather to disinherit a son in an afternoon if he ever needed to, that allowed the primary trustee to assign the entire trust to any named individual, in writing, with 2 witnesses, at any time, for any reason, Connor did not know this clause existed. I knew because reading clauses like this one is literally what I do for a living. He once described the entire trust to me, at a dinner party, while explaining my own industry to me in front of 7 people, as basically a savings account with extra paperwork. He laughed. Margaret laughed. I did not laugh. I had read every word of that trust the week we got engaged, and I understood it better than the lawyer who drafted it. The clause could be activated by Connor. It could also be activated by Connor's wife, holding power of attorney over his administrative paperwork, which he had signed over to me 6 years ago on a Sunday afternoon, because he found administrative paperwork boring. He handed me the gun. He just never imagined I knew it was loaded. Now, you might be wondering why I would give $31 million to the woman sleeping with my husband. That sounds like the opposite of revenge. Here is the answer, and it's the whole plan in one sentence. I gave it to Audrey because Audrey has never given anything back in her life. Not the $11,000. Not my car. Not the sweater she borrowed in February. Not my husband. Once a thing was in Audrey's hands, it stayed there. And the trust clause was one-directional. Once filed, only the new beneficiary could ever release it. Not Connor. Not a court, easily. Only Audrey. So I didn't need to take anything from Connor myself. I only needed to put $31 million into the hands of the one person on Earth who would never, ever let it go. And then step back and let 2 greedy people destroy each other over it. All I needed was the right moment, and Connor, bless him, was about to hand me that too. 2 weeks before the party, he sat me down at the kitchen table with the gravity of a man who had rehearsed. He'd made himself tea. He did not offer me any. He said the marriage hadn't been working. He'd been thinking carefully. He thought, reaching for my hand, which I did not give him, that a separation might be the healthiest path. And then my favorite part.
I've been seeing a therapist. He's helped me understand that this is the mature, healthy choice for both of us.
4 months of therapy. 4 months of a professional helping Connor feel wonderful about a decision that benefited only Connor. I tilted my head. I asked, "Now?"
After the party, it would be tacky before. But after, we can start the process properly.
"Of course," I said. "After." He sagged with relief. He'd prepared a whole speech about growing apart. Nobody's fault. He didn't get to use any of it.
You're being so reasonable. You've always been the practical one. I knew you'd just accept it.
He thought practical was a compliment. He thought accept was a kindness. I let him keep both words. He was going to need the comfort. After the party, he just handed me my timeline. All I needed now was for Audrey to confirm she was exactly who I thought she was. She did that Saturday, over a seating chart she had no intention of helping with. She arrived in a cream sweater I recognized as mine. She poured herself wine from a bottle she didn't ask about. She sat at my kitchen island with the expression of a woman who has been saving a piece of news and is finally about to spend it.
Elena, I need to talk to you about something. About me and Connor. I know this is hard, and I want you to know. Neither of us planned it. These things just happen.
"I know," I said.
You know.
"I've known for a while."
Oh.
I watched her recalculate in real time, the disappointment flickering through, because the telling was supposed to be her moment, and I'd taken it. Then she reached across the island and took my hand, and I saw the ring. New. A diamond. Not modest.
I want you to know I love you, truly, and I'd never take anything from you that wasn't freely given. My mother always says how you treat family in hard times is who you really are. I want us to still be family. After.
Her mother, Margaret. The woman who had spent 20 years watching the Voss money the way a cat watches a bird through glass. The woman who had positioned her daughter in this house, near this marriage, the way you position a plant toward the light, patiently, with intent. Margaret had wanted this money to reach Audrey for 2 decades, She'd just never had the mechanism. I had the mechanism, and Audrey had just told me, in her own words, exactly who she was. I squeezed her hand. I said, "You've been so generous to tell me. I want to do something generous for you, too." She smiled. She had no idea she'd just signed her own name to it. On the morning of the party, I drove to the notary at 9. I filed the substitution. Audrey Lassiter named sole beneficiary of the Voss Family Trust, effective immediately, irreversible without her consent. The notary stamped it at 10:15. Henderson's office confirmed at 10:40. I printed the confirmation. I slid it into a slim leather folder. I went home, put on the dress Connor bought me for our 5th anniversary, the last year he bought me anything, and did my own hair. Then I went downstairs to give my husband the most expensive evening of his life. The party was in the garden. 86 people, his college friends, his business partners, his family. Margaret was already there, positioned beside Audrey, who was wearing the pearls. Of course, the pearls. Margaret greeted me with a smile that reached exactly as far as it needed to.
Elena, you look tired.
That was Margaret. She said it every time she saw me. I told her I felt wonderful. I wasn't lying. Connor swept past, kissed my cheek, squeezed my arm.
You look great. Going to be a beautiful night. Really good energy.
I told him there was something I wanted to do during the toasts.
Perfect. Yeah, you're great at that stuff.
He was already turning away before I finished the sentence. 8 years, and he never once waited to hear the end of a sentence I was speaking. Tonight, that habit would cost him $31 million. I waited until the champagne was poured. I waited until Audrey drifted close to Connor, the way she always did now. I waited until 86 people were quiet and looking at me. I lifted my glass. Thank you all for being here. 10 years is a long time, and I've spent these last few weeks thinking about what I wanted to say tonight, because the best anniversaries are honest ones, and I want to be honest. Connor's smile shifted, the way a door shifts in its frame just before it opens. This marriage hasn't been working for a long time. Connor and I are going to separate. He's been very mature about it. I'm grateful. The silence cracked open. Someone in the back said, "Oh, Elena." Connor recovered fast. "I'll give him that." He slid his arm around my shoulders and addressed the room like a man playing the gracious ex.
My wife is remarkable. We're doing this with love. Pure love. No bitterness.
That was the opening I'd been waiting for. And because we're doing this with love, I said, I want to mark tonight with a gift. To someone who's always called herself part of this family. To my stepsister. Audrey, would you come up here? She came forward because 86 people were watching. She stood beside me trying to read the moment. I opened the leather folder. I took out one sheet of paper. I put it in her hands. "This is for you. I want you to have it." She looked down. Audrey never read carefully under pressure. She saw the words Voss Family Trust. She saw the words sole beneficiary. She saw her own name in the line where a name goes. And for one unguarded second before she understood the trap, her face did something honest. It was almost triumphant. "That's the first beat. Watch what falls next."
Wait, what is that? What did you file?
"The substitution," I said. "It's a clause in your grandfather's trust. It lets the primary trustee assign the entire principal to a named beneficiary, in writing, with 2 witnesses. I had it notarized this morning. Henderson confirmed the filing at 10:40.
That's, Elena, you don't have the authority to...
You gave me power of attorney over your administrative paperwork 6 years ago, a Sunday afternoon. You said it was boring." That was the second beat. His face went the color of wet concrete. His college roommate set down his glass. His business partner, a man who'd trusted Connor with 14 years of deals, took one slow step backward, the way you step back from something that's started to smoke. And Margaret. Margaret, who had wanted this exact outcome for 20 years, who had maneuvered her daughter into this house, brick by patient brick. Margaret finally understood what was happening. Not that her daughter had won. That I had done in 3 weeks, with a notary appointment, what she had failed to do in 2 decades. That the woman she'd dismissed as ambition in a dress had just rearranged the entire family while she stood there holding a champagne flute. That was the third beat. The smartest person in Margaret's world realizing she'd never once been the smartest person in the room. Connor turned to Audrey. His voice dropped.
Reverse it.
He doesn't understand yet, I thought. Let me help him. He can't. I said. And neither can you. It's one-directional. Once it's filed, only the new beneficiary can release it. Henderson confirmed that too. And there it was. The fourth beat. The one I'd built the entire plan around. I watched it cross Connor's face. The understanding that the only person on Earth who could give him back his fortune was the woman he'd left his wife for. He turned to her.
Audrey, give it back. Give me the document.
86 people heard him say it. 86 people watched Audrey, holding $31 million, wearing a dead woman's pearls, look at the man she'd burned down a marriage for, and hesitate.
I think I need to speak to my lawyer first.
That was the fifth beat. The best one. The most honest sentence Audrey had ever said out loud, and she said it in front of his family, his partners, his friends, his stepmother. In one sentence, she told all 86 of them exactly what she was, and exactly what she'd never give back. Connor turned to Margaret. "Tell her," he was saying. "Explain to her. This is a mistake." Margaret looked at her stepson, the boy whose inheritance she'd circled for 20 years, and she said quietly, so everyone near her heard it clearly, "Connor, what have you done to this family? Not to me, to him." She didn't spare me a word of sympathy. She never had one to spare. But she'd understood that the damage was total, and that her own son had walked them all into it, and that the woman she'd underestimated was already halfway to the door. I set down my glass. I had not taken a single sip. I didn't look at Connor. I didn't look at Audrey. I didn't look at Margaret. I walked through the garden, past 86 people who had stopped pretending not to watch, past the anniversary cake nobody would cut, through the kitchen where 3 weeks ago a woman who called herself my sister had worn another woman's pearls and told me I was home too early. Out the front door. My car was in the driveway. My bag was already in the passenger seat. I'd packed it that morning, before the notary. I'm thorough. It's the whole reason any of this worked. Behind me, I could hear Connor saying my name. I could hear Audrey crying, the specific crying of a person realizing that wanting something is not the same as keeping it. I could hear Margaret's voice, low and sharp, cutting her stepson into pieces. I got in the car. I started the engine. I drove. 3 weeks later, Henderson called. Audrey had refused to release the trust. She'd hired a lawyer. She intended to keep all $31 million. The Voss family was suing her. Connor had moved out of the house Audrey had moved into. Margaret had stopped answering his calls entirely. 2 greedy people locked in a lawsuit that would outlast their patience, their savings, and whatever they'd briefly mistaken for love. Exactly where I'd left them. Henderson said he assumed I'd known it would go this way. I was on the balcony of an apartment I'd chosen, east-facing, so I watched the sun come up instead of waiting for it to go down, drinking coffee in the morning light. I told him I'd assumed Audrey would keep it. He asked if I was certain I wanted nothing from the proceedings. "I want nothing," I said. He was quiet a moment. Then he told me it had been a genuine pleasure. Here's what they never understood. Any of them. I didn't walk away with nothing. I walked away with my firm $940 million in client assets, a managing partner title that became official 4 days after I filed for divorce. I walked away with my name, my work, my mornings, this balcony, this coffee. The $31 million was never mine to want. It was Connor's. So I gave it to the one person guaranteed to take it from him and never give it back. And I let the 2 of them do to each other what they'd done to me, except this time in front of everyone, and this time permanent. People ask if I miss any of it. I don't miss the money. It was never mine. I don't miss the man. He was someone I'd been patiently outlasting for 8 years, while I built something he never bothered to understand. I miss sometimes the woman I was at 28, before I knew what I was capable of. But I find her whenever I need her. She was always there, in the room, reading the documents nobody else would, being called a glorified accountant by a man who never once asked what I actually did. She was the most dangerous person in every room she ever walked into. They just never thought to look.